Welcome back, you guys, to the podcast. My name is Justin. I am your host for Next Album Please, and I have Memz Duo here with Jordan and Turner. I'm super excited to have you guys on. This is our very first podcast where we have video, so I couldn't be happier to have you guys on to do it.
Happy Congratulations, Justin.
Thank you. Slowly growing the podcast. I mean, it started out really small. Now I think we've got over, I want to say about 400 downloads in the past, month or so. So it's
nice.
Slowly
That's
getting
great, man.
there. Slowly getting
Let's
there.
go.
That's
great.
So Memz Duo. Let's talk about the name first off.
Okay.
I thought I was going to pronounce it wrong. And when I said it to you guys and you guys said, no, that's right. I was like, oh, perfect. All right. So what brought you guys to that name?
I think, I had, at the time, I was thinking a lot about like memories. And I was like, what about something about like memories? And then Jordan just likes silly names. And
Yeah.
I think, Jordan, you were like, how about just Memz? Just keep it simple. And I think like if you look at our track lists on our album, there's kind of some nonsensical words, as well as like some just like weird drawn out titles as well. So you can thank Jordan for shifting my perspective, just like some weird silly names.
It's the creativity, and honestly, a name needs to stand out, and what better way of doing that with a name that some people are going to be like, how do you even pronounce that? So it definitely stands out. And I think that's a big reason on why I was really interested in the beginning, is because the first thing that you see from a artist, from a consumer's perspective, is the name. You don't hear anything first, you see the name. So what stands out about your guys' name is it's completely different. Never heard of that before, so it was perfect
Nice.
name choice.
Nice.
And with your names for the songs, yeah, I really appreciate. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but Birdos what does that stem from?
That literally stems from so when we first started, Turner wanted me to play as a part of this like residency program that he had at a local gallery and art space or sound space in Columbus, Ohio. And I said, okay, sure. And then he asked me just to send him some ideas. So I sent him some really, really simple, like painfully simple ideas on the saxophone. And then I also sent him a recording of me whistling like a bird. And then we were like, okay, well, I guess we'll just call it Birdos. And that's it. That's where it comes from.
Perfect. Okay,
Again,
yeah, I was way off.
Jordan's silly shortening of thing. It's cool, I think, but it like in a way, the reason why I like it is it abstracts things a bit. It sounds familiar, yet like it could be actually a word of some sort, but it's not so direct that it still lets your like imagination wander a little bit, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a fan of it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm all for the.
Well, what really grew on me was the parts. You have part 1, part 2, part 3, and it's not necessarily said that way. You have the different names that come after each part and stuff. So I feel like those as a trio, it really felt authentic and real, and each track, you go from Bups, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yes.
Bups.
Arps, and then Crickets, and it's just the flow that you guys had there was superb. So it was really good to have that in an album where you not only does your album go from track to track seamlessly, you have a trio of songs within an album that also goes seamlessly, and it's great writing, just great writing.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah,
that's really nice.
That trio of songs was Jordan mentioned that I had a performance, like a residency performance, and that trio is actually what came out. That the 3-part Bups are Birdos 1, 2, and 3 is what resulted from that initial collaboration.
Mhm.
And after we wrote that, we were kind of like, we're vibing really well with writing, and so we were just like, I think it just scratched an itch with both of us, that we were like, we have to kind of follow down this path and keep writing things. So that was like our first, and when we performed together at that residency performance, we played it just all straight through that. How long is that? Like maybe like 15-20 minutes, the 3 tracks together.
Yeah, it's
I
a
think
little over
so.
15 minutes.
So that's what, like, that was our first thing that we wrote together. And so we were just like, we got to keep these together. But I like the like, you have this album, but then like this other contained idea inside of that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that point you brought up, Justin.
Yeah, it's really it was like an indirect way of doing it, and that's what makes you guys so humble in a consumer's perspective, is you didn't even realize, like, you guys, I mean, I'm sure you guys later on realized what you guys were doing. Obviously you guys are amazing musicians and everything, and you know how to write, but you indirectly put, you know, like I said, that seamless trio into a seamless album, and I just really appreciated that. So that you don't see that very much anymore, you know. You really don't.
Yeah, and that was like one of our ways to sort of bridge the gap between, like, you know, contemporary classical or neoclassical music and like their albums. You know, they're usually playing like a piece by whoever that's a few movements long, and then maybe a few pieces, and then another like multi-movement piece. But multi-movement stuff is something that you don't see too often outside of the classical world.
Yep.
And Turner and I both exist pretty heavily within the classical or the neoclassical world. But it's nice because in an album like this, the more like we think about it, and then talking with you, it's almost like this cool little section of the album where it becomes a little bit more intimate, and you feel like you're going. It's like the entire thing is like a little bit dreamy already. But then when Birdo starts, from when it starts to when it stops, I feel like it's almost like second layer of a dream almost, where you're zooming in a bit more. And then I think then that actually kind of helps the album, I think, end a little bit stronger
Yeah,
as
it does.
well.
It does. It does. And it also it makes the listener almost lost into the album, and it's not necessarily it doesn't start necessarily halfway through the album, but it's a little, you know, it is right past halfway. So you're
Yeah.
not only getting the listener to halfway, now you're making them more intrigued by listening to this trio of songs that kind of uplifts the listener. And that's the difference in a lot of bands nowadays, is they seem to forget that, especially bands that are in the heavier aspect of music and stuff. They seem to kind of just, okay, how can we get from one end of the album to the other as seamless as possible, which is fine, but you still have to make the listener engaged. And
Yeah.
and that's what you guys do. You guys bring, you know, from some, you get to the point where some alias comes on, and then as soon as some alias is done, you think, okay, we're either gonna slow it down, or we're, you know, or it's hard to say the words correctly, but it's like you almost brought in a brand new album. You almost bring the whole album is lifted right back up, starting with Birdo's number one, you know. So
Oh, that's cool.
it definitely, your album waves, and it does it in the best possible way. I've never heard anything so experimental, like, and almost the precision that you guys have is astounding. It really is. It is. So, and I said it before, I think when I did one of my reviews, was 6 or 7 is my favorite track out of both.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You guys have this, and you guys also have the remix, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I listened to both, and I listened to them back to back, and then I went back to Music for Exploring, and I couldn't stop listening to 6 or 7. Like, there's like one of my favorite tracks of all time.
Oh, thanks,
Thank you.
Justin. That's really
Yeah.
nice of you, man.
No problem. So
Well, it's funny that you say that, well, it's very kind of you to say that our music is experimental and precise when you've also reviewed one of my favorite albums of the year, the Zombie Shark album,
oh
and
yes.
that album is wildly experimental and also wildly precise. So knowing that, you're also like just it's a really nice compliment, especially judging by what you reviewed directly before our album and then also after our album.
And Zombie Shark is a chaotic precision. It's very everywhere. It's for lack of a better term, it's very just the way he is so eccentric with his stuff. It's a different side of experimental. We've got
Yeah.
the calming, electrifying side from you guys, and then we've got the chaotic, just whoa, what the heck is that from him? And it honestly, you guys coexist in an absolute beautiful like genre. You really do, and I feel that the genre needs to be more recognized. I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of people don't take that, I guess, what is it, the risk? I don't even know why it's a risk for consumers. I mean, what is an hour gonna do to you? Like, just take the time and listen. So as for my listeners, you guys need to take the risk and listen to music outside your box, because you'd be really surprised on what you find, and your
And I think that's
musical prowess will definitely go up.
I think that's a great point. The like idea of kind of looking past maybe your preconceptions of certain genres, because I know a lot of groups, especially like there are a lot of kind of, if you think about jazz and what most people would think about as jazz, would just like maybe immediately turn them off of a lot of artists that are creating music, and sometimes genre isn't even up to the people making the art form. Like, they get reviewed by something, and or just like they start getting shoved into this box because of all the people that are listening, and they're like, well, I guess we're a jazz group now.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that they're like it's bad, or like talking about Zombie Shark and calling them like metal or something. It's just like genre is a great way to, on the whole, describe someone's sound. But like you were saying, Justin, like you that's can't be the only thing that you use to like check or like know what it sounds like. You got to actually just sit and listen.
Yeah.
And take the time to make your own choice about what you think about the music.
Exactly.
And I think like choosing to sit and listen, like a lot of times, so if you're looking at music that's just broadly experimental, so if we're using Zombie Shark for instance, just because it's such a great record and he writes such great music, but like if you look at anything, especially on Bandcamp with the tag experimental, I think a lot of people pass it up really quick because they're like, oh, it's going to be really, really, really quiet and really slow, or it's not going to sound like anything, or it's going to be like music concrete and like people just dropping chains on the floor and like somebody yelling, or like someone crying in crying in a refrigerator or something weird. But like if you choose to sit and listen, like when I first heard Computer Kids Unite off that record, I was like, okay, this is a lot to deal with right now. But then I chose to listen. I chose to sit and listen. And I'm like, this is so, this writing is incredible. It's so good. And that can be that I guess mindset of choosing to sit and listen, or choosing to listen to music that you might not necessarily go to really quick. I think more people need to do it, especially if there's any form of like experimental tag on any record or any group or whatever else. It's fun to do too.
It is. I mean, your album explains it a lot. Music for exploring. People need to take that aspect of exploring music more seriously, and I feel that categorizing music is probably the most deadliest thing to music. It doesn't help, because okay, say I was like one-minded, all I liked was metal, I would have never listened. I would have never listened to you guys. Why? Because your tag does not say metal. It literally you're. I mean, I honestly don't even see really you guys in a spot. Like the only thing I could say is in indie, and that's
Yeah.
only because indie is now the new labeled underground, and that's the only reason
Yeah.
why. And I feel that, like you said, it takes a lot to explore music, but once you do, and people that are listening, please take our advice, do it. It's fun. It brings a whole new meaning to music. You know, I'm 31. I've been doing music for since I was 5. My very first album was Pink Floyd. You know,
Yeah.
so I've been listening to music for a long time, and to sit down and really take everything in, it's a whole new level. It really is. It really is. So, what? I'm gonna go with Turner. You first. What got you into music, like in general?
Like I started off like a lot of kids do, just like I learned how to play piano. I didn't really like, but I didn't like it. I did it for a couple of years, and then when I had to choose a band instrument, I chose percussion. And then I, got started on drum set. And by the time I got into like high school, I was making music with computers and like loops and GarageBand, but I kind of had these sounds in my head that I couldn't achieve with just drums that I knew how to play and like loops. So I got really interested in playing guitar and starting to sing. And then would just like kind of use those early GarageBand DAWs to compose. And so when I went into school for music, I studied music composition, but it was always felt that performing was a big part of being like attached to music,
Yes.
or like better understanding how to realize music and keeping yourself involved in the art form. So I just was always like playing in bands. I'd play like guitar, or then I'd also play kind of experimental and minimalist percussion music. And then I got into building my own instruments out of uh like EMT pipe, like electrical conduit, and
Wow. Okay.
welding steel, and uh like so I kind of um I don't know. I feel very, as a musician, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like I have so many interests, and a thing that comes into my head a lot is like the jack of all trades,
Yes.
master of none.
Yes.
And I try to
Mhm.
I constantly try and disprove that, because I think as artists, like the idea of mastery is kind of non-existent, and if someone says they have a mastery of something, they're just putting themselves in a weird box. So like
They're being silly.
yeah, they're being
They're
silly.
being yeah, exactly, and they're being super unrealistic because you cannot. It. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Somebody's speeding through the good old intersection right there.
Yeah, dude.
It's so bad over here. No, but it's really unrealistic for anyone to say that they mastered an instrument, because every day I hear something new, and
Yeah.
and the human mind is so intense and so like super unexplored that I still don't feel like we've even scratched the surface of anything. So to say that you have you're a master of guitar, you're a master of this, I don't think so.
And so that's like I always just try, and my philosophy has just kind of been like, whatever things that I find that make me kind of tick or make me curious, to just go down those paths, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes I like what I make, and sometimes I don't. But I think that curiosity and finding what makes you kind of interested and curious as a person is kind of what I have been leaning towards more and more as I create artwork is just following what I'm interested in. And it might be
Yeah.
visual art sometimes. I really like dabbling with like video work and joining that with music. But yeah, I that's kind of my musical background.
Nice. Love to hear that. Jordan, how about you?
Uh, Mine's not as cool as Turner's. I don't build anything. Um, I
Jordan, you're cool in your own way. You're underselling yourself.
Thanks, Turner.
Definitely,
You're cool.
definitely. I've seen your little as people say diddlies on the on Instagram, and you're an absolute amazing artist. So yeah, but keep
Oh,
going.
thanks, man. Well, then I'm a professional diddlier. I got my start when I well my dad was a musician as well, and so were my older brothers and sister because my dad was. My dad grew up playing saxophone, and then he got really into buying and selling instruments when I was super young. And then like also just like any and everything music. Like he had like a jukebox company for a long time, and they had like those super swaggy, like shiny Coach jackets with like a big jukebox on the back, and he had a power stash, and he was a really good look. Um, but then like there was always instruments around our house because he was always buying and selling instruments all the time, and like he would like hold on to one or two for a while. There was always a piano in the house, always like some sort of percussion instruments, maybe a guitar. Um, so I just would noodle around a lot or diddly around a lot, just because it was always there, and it was really refreshing growing up in the day like pre-internet, when you were bored, you had to make your own fun. So
Yes.
I would just play some instruments or go outside. I remember for like a week, I was really into using a bass drum in our basement. So I just had a bass drum and a bass drum pedal, and then an acoustic guitar just with the lowest string on it. And I would like try and figure stuff out, and it just probably sounded so bad. But I've just been into it for as long as I can remember, and I started playing saxophone in 6th grade, and then when it was time to like go to college or not go to college, it was like, well, I'll just do the music thing. It was never really a question of like, well, is it going to make money? Is it not going to make money? Because spoiler, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I think like I was blissfully ignorant because I just didn't really know anything else, and I had no other interests really. It was just playing music because that was like the thing that just always kind of seemed like, well, yeah, duh, I'm just going to play music. So then I just have been playing music for a long time. I didn't for a while. I got burnt out for a while. I moved to Oregon, and I didn't touch my saxophone for like 2 years, and I would just ride my bike and sell apples at a grocery store. But then, yeah, that was it. That was my like much needed break. But I've just been doing it for a while. It's like one of my favorite things to do.
And that's interesting that you say that. The money aspect of it for listeners that are listening in, please take that advice, because if you're gonna go into music, I've learned this countless of times. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. You need to do it because you love it. You need to do it because you love writing, you love playing, you love being on stage. That's my main thing, was being on stage. I could care less if we sounded horrible. I wanted to be on stage. That was like my passion, and I never really thought about the money, and I've met a lot of people where they've come in and they're like, man, the music scene doesn't make that much money, and it's like, well, yeah, you're not Ariana Grande, so
Yeah.
it's simple as that. You don't have all these legal things behind you. That's where and I talked with an artist named Solo. His podcast will be coming out, I believe, Monday. I talked with him, and we both agreed that the music industry is slowly fading. It's now the day and age of underground music, experimental music, indie music, people that aren't backed by these big record labels. It's now quote unquote our time.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time, you're not gonna make that much money, but just do what you can to get recognized at least, And then you know what makes you money? Your sales, you know, your hustle of your merch and all that stuff. So, but you know, it you still have to have that willingness and love for music, you know, in order to even get to that point. So that
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I really do think like the music industry is just because of is so different because of independently producing artists, and like the album that we made could like really not happen in a traditional studio, even like a small studio um in a city that like helps artists produce out. Like we needed the freedom of like the room that I'm in now is, you know, 95% of the album was just recorded in my tiny little home studio with a handful of mid-level mics and audio interface and a legal wink version of Ableton. But
You didn't
but
have to sell yourself out. You didn't have to. You didn't
hey,
have to sell
I will
yourself
say
out.
this: Ableton's pretty chill about stuff, and I released I released a solo album, and from the money I made from that, I just bought Ableton, so it's a little
there you
good
go.
karma,
So
you know.
you know
Good.
you got
There
to
you
start
go.
somewhere.
But but like I just think that like the music that's being made in the like bigger studios is just going to be entirely different.
Yeah.
It's going to be completely different than like a couple of artists being like, well, we need to meet and just explore. I mean, I don't think that's happened since like, I mean, if you think about the Beatles, who are like famously like the more they went on, they really became like studio musicians.
Yep.
And just like were like experimenting in their studio, and that I feel like that doesn't really happen. At least I might be kind of like out of the loop of what happens in studios, but from what I know is like you book the time and like you better finish recording everything in the time that you got. Um, but you know the exploring and being able to just kind of be nimble and experimental and is the birth of like independent artists, and the quality that you can record at
Oh yes.
without spending tens of thousands of dollars is kind of wild.
Yeah, and it's like you said, the independent scene is fully capable. I mean, I've got kids that are coming on the podcast that have recorded entire albums off of iPhone, uh, uh, the headphones, you know, with the little
Yeah.
microphone on it, and
That's so
and
cool.
it's so raw and so in your face. Like you can tell that these guys are in it for the music because I mean, I would, because I'm such a critic to myself, I would never be able to release an album on that type of mic. I couldn't do it. I would
Yeah.
be like, no, I can't do it. I can't. I would never be able to do that. So the courage that new musicians have nowadays is really high, and it's what it is for the big boys. I'm talking, like I said, I mentioned Ariana Grande and stuff like that. It's all there as a, I guess, a goal for some musicians. To
Yeah.
me, it's just kind of like headlights. It's just there, you know. It's to to the underground scene. We have Spotify, we have SoundCloud, so we have the platforms to put the music on. And like you said, you don't have to spend $10,000 for a recording studio anymore. You can go on Amazon right now, buy the. I'm not sponsored, by the way. By the what is it? The oh my goodness, the
Like an
Scarlett?
interface
The
or
Scarlett?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Scarlett.
Boom.
For
I got a Scarlett. Let's go.
see for like $2.99, and boom, there's your mic, your interface, and all you need is a computer, and now you have a recording studio. So it's very. I don't want to say easy because it's a horrible word for music. It's not easy for any musician out there. You have to work for what you get, but it is very,
Accessible.
yes, definitely. So you guys told us exactly like what got you into music and everything. So what inspired you you guys to just like kind of just be like, you know what? Well, I mean, I guess we talked about that. You guys did the tracks together, and you thought, well, we wrote this so well, like we should do a whole thing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Like Turner and I have known each other since 2012, and we've always, we were very fast friends. Um, we both exude Taurus energy, and I'm not sure if it's because of that, but we both are really big fans of like emotionally charged music.
Oh yes.
Because we both met in music school. And we're always doing a lot of listening, a lot of playing, a lot of sharing of music, um and then I think what made us want to write this more is because there's this whole thing of like chamber ensembles or small performance groups of either or either like similar or dissimilar instruments, and a lot of times like you don't really see saxophone plus double neck guitar plus electronics plus all this stuff. Like it's a pretty unique ensemble. And then I think that the ensemble setting paired with our love for sad boy music, we were like, well, let's just continue to figure out how we can make the sound and all the stuff that we're able to create purely based on our inspiration, and then the actual timbres that we're able to get from like the saxophone itself is capable of doing like all these different timbral effects and wild stuff and super, like its range is really big. But then with using guitar and then Turner's voice and then electronics and stuff too, you're able to get all these other different timbres out, and then that paired with our inspiration for like sad stuff,
Yeah.
it just seems like it's a good combo.
Yeah,
And that-
and it is, and you know what? You guys remind me of a band that was it revolutionized this style of music, and I saw them with you guys have heard of System of a Down, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I saw them with System of a Down, totally opposite of what they are, and I'm talking about the Mars Volta.
Yeah.
Mars Volta,
Yeah.
when they came out, ahead of their time. They revolutionized a lot of things. I think they were very unappreciated. They were the most popular unpopular band out there, and you guys. That's what when I first heard your album. I instantly thought, oh my God, Mars Volta. Like, not
Oh,
saying that
sweet.
you guys are copying them. No, you guys are in your own lane, own level on that, but it's just the excitement that I got from hearing Mars Volta back in 2005, I think.
Yeah, they've been,
2004.
they've been around.
Yeah, since I saw them, I got that excitement again because it's the your guys aren't really. It's not chaos, and I say chaos is a good thing. Chaos in music is an amazing thing if done right. But you guys just have this eccentric style of you guys, and it just brought me back to the Mars Volta days, and I was just like, oh yeah.
That's, dude, I remember the very first time I heard my first Mars Volta track. I was teaching some band camp somewhere, and I was an undergrad, and someone put it on, and I was like, what is this? And I think and it was like maybe like a few months before I had just gotten into At the Drive-In.
Yes.
Why is this sounds a little similar, but it just sounds better and bigger, and the production budget or the production value was just so much bigger, and yeah, such a good band.
Yeah, and that's what it surprised me when you said it was only you two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just us.
I was like, what? I was like, wow. It's such a big sound from two guys. Mind you, you've got Zombie Shark, who's one guy, which I
Yeah.
didn't know about that either. So when I found out you guys were two guys, and then I found out Zombie Shark was one, I was like, whoa. Okay, so
And this is the power of the, like, what I was talking about with just being nimble in your own little independent studio and being able to riff, and like I come up with something and Jordan's like, oh, what if you like put that into your program, and like we like talk through this chord progression and then record this and then like this little saxophone idea over it. Because I will say, like, this album, so like Birdo's I think might be we have some live versions of the other things as well, but for the most part, like, really exists in the studio, like it could only be possible through just recording.
Yeah.
And when we do perform, we're just like, these are kind of rough ideas that we're gonna do something different and like spin things off and do a different version of it. So we're able to really just kind of like run free with the studio version,
Yeah,
the album version.
and you could feel that with the album. You could feel how free you guys are and how there is no limitations in the way you guys write. And I think that's what kind of turned me on to the music was you can really hear it, you can feel it, that there was nobody standing behind you going, "Ooh, no, that people aren't going to like that." If nobody liked it, it didn't matter because you guys created it. It's your baby, basically. And I admire that because you took a risk. You really did.
Yeah.
This album is definitely a risky album that paid off absolutely amazingly well, and it deserves way more recognition than it's getting. And I feel that I can't wait to hear whatever you guys have. The minds of like brilliant minds for music, and I can't wait to hear what's next. So
Thanks, Justin. I think that's really nice to say too, because right before this, Turner and I were on a quick little call back and forth, and it's just pee and fart jokes. So it's nice to be able to like turn on the switch and turn off the switch.
And and that's another thing too, is you guys aren't. A lot of people have this misconception of people who stand behind music theory, who stand behind the knowledge of music, that everyone that does that is kind of like prudish. And I was also part of that crowd a while back. I was like, oh, when Prague came out, I was like, oh man, these guys think they know everything and all that. It's because they do. They know exactly how to write. They know exactly why they did it this way. So I still am a big. I guess I still stand behind. You don't really have to know music theory to be an artist, because I feel like music theory does scare artists. It scares a lot of people, including myself. I wish I could go back and go, okay, I really want to study music theory. Like nowadays, I couldn't do it. I'm way past that. I'm just like, no, I don't have time for that right now, because you have endless amount of information. But there's people like you guys that prove, and I know you both. I mean, just by the way you write, you guys have a lot of music theory, and I feel that you guys are super down to earth and not these quote unquote a-holes that that look down on other musicians, and that's
the classical musician in the ivory tower, kind of isolated. And that was a goal of Jordan and I's to like, not like, come down. I would like to think that Jordan and I are just naturally just kind of down to earth people, but it was a goal to like, we wanted to write music that was approachable and like pleasurable to listen to, and not like exploiting the experimental aspect of it, but having it be something that people want to turn on, not because it's like, oh, this is like so crazy and like so weird, like you have to listen to this, but like is truly like you have an emotional response to it, and like it makes you feel something. It makes you feel like you're exploring something. And I'm glad that comes across. I've been using this word a lot that I like. I don't know if it's a word, the genuosity.
Oh, okay.
I want there to be more things in the world with like genuosity to them. Like they have this like genuine nature, and I feel like you were talking about music theory, and like, yes, music theory is an important tool to some musicians, but I think like isolating listeners is like not what you want to do. And regardless of if a listener has music theory knowledge or not, what listeners can tell is how genuine something is, and like how genuine an artist is. That is something that transcends music and goes into like just like our culture of like what we've grown up listening to, and I think listeners, people in general, can just kind of underestimate their musical intelligence and musical kind of like uh, what they understand about music in our culture. I think that because we have these dichotomies of musicians and non-musicians, that people who may not identify as a musician kind of underestimate their ability to have opinions and feelings when it comes to certain kinds of music.
Yeah, and I tell you what, as a representative of the human race, you know, we
All of them, all of
all
them.
of them. What is the number one thing that every human has in common, and that is emotion. And
Yeah.
if you stop and think about music, every aspect about music is emotion. And that is the number one thing. You cannot write an album without emotion. You cannot write anything that's poetry, a book, you can't do anything without emotion. So every person out there is capable of like you said, having that opinion and being able to be more part of music, because if they just understand the emotion aspect, you don't have to understand everything else, just understand the emotion aspect and feel it. Once you do that, and once you can accept that you can feel music, shoot, you can listen to anything.
Yeah, and we
Absolutely
didn't want there we didn't want there to be like a thing where like, oh, in order to like our music, you need to buy a ticket.
Yeah.
We want it to be like you listen to it right away, and hopefully it elicits some sort of an emotional response. But all too often with a lot of people in the, like in the sort of highbrow, needlessly highbrow music theory world or the music school world, there's this weird sort of like self-inflating that goes on where it's like, well, they didn't like my music because they didn't get it. It's like, well, no, I think it's because you're writing your music for a very, very select group of people who will quote unquote get it. And that's not the goal, to isolate yourself and then to isolate the majority of people who want to actually be enjoying your stuff. Like, why not bridge the gap by writing music that's just really easy to listen to and satisfying to listen to, that doesn't require like these prerequisites? It's very weird.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the album, that's cool too. It's just some sounds. It won't hurt anyone.
Exactly.
Just some sounds.
Exactly. Just some sounds. Just some amazing freaking sounds. All right. But it's I will say this: if you do decide to write to that selected few because that's something that you want to do, then you need to also expect the fact that not a lot of people are going to listen to that. There's a huge chance that your music's gonna be swept under the rug. Why? Not because it's bad, but because it's too structurally pointed to one direction, and you can't. If you want to have this wide, broad, you want everybody to love it, vision of your music, then you need to write that way, not just to the one aspect. So you're absolutely correct on that. So with that, besides the one place that you guys that you already told me about, are you guys gonna? I know 2020 kind of, I mean, it really did. It put a damper on everything musician wise.
Yeah.
And for us, I'm in California. For us, we just got put on another lockdown for a month. So
did kind of Ohio kind of did too.
Oh, okay.
I live in Columbus, and it just like we're like on the highest emergency level, but it has become difficult this year, very much so.
Very, very difficult. I will say this though, on a side note, 2020 has given every musician out there the opportunity that has the equipment to do it, to write albums like crazy. So if you're out there, you're bored at home, you're a musician, please get on it. It doesn't matter if it sucks, put it out there. But if you like it, put it out there. So just a little side note. But anyways, after everything's lifted, are we going to get a studio version of you guys continuing on, or are we going to get a live version of you guys? Because I would absolutely love to see. I mean, I know it's kind of hard because you guys have a lot going on in your album. There is
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, but I mean, it's fully capable of doing live. I'm just saying. I mean, I may be tuning.
It is.
but is there a possibility of you guys going live and maybe touring?
I think that there's a possibility. I know that like throughout the year our lives are a little bit busy. Well, I mean throughout like the like school year and stuff, because I'm a teacher and Turner is also doing a ton of work. But there's talk of us hopefully going to play the album in Texas at the University in North Texas. It's still like kind of in the works right now, but like we would be doing the album, but then orchestrated for a giant wind symphony. So it would be us plus a wind symphony. That's a goal. Touring in the standard way, I don't know. It's just so much, and Turner and I are both so old and crusty. But at least like I think what we would like to do, because we've talked about it a little bit, but we also don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. But like, making sure that if we go play a gig somewhere farther out, that it's fit and it's going to be valuable and it's going to be a fun experience as well. But touring, who knows? Playing gigs outside of Ohio and other places, I wouldn't think that we were opposed to the idea. But we are right now slowly beginning to work on an EP.
Nice.
But yeah, it's like very much so in its infancy. But that's one thing that we're working on right now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very much what we're trying to control. Not like what Jordan said, it's hard to plan anything right now, so we're just kind of working within our means of working on things remotely.
Exactly, and it is hard for a lot of musicians right now. I mean, I actually just got an invite. I don't know how they're doing it, but I got an invite from a band. Mind you, they live in, I think, Pennsylvania. I don't know how I'm supposed to get there, but I appreciate the invite. I told them, I said, well, aren't you guys on lockdown? And they said, yeah. And they just put a winky face. So I don't know, so that some bands are able to get out there and still play and stuff like that. But I honestly, I would love personally, this is just from, a fan aspect, because I can call myself a fan of you guys, is I would love to see you guys live, whether it is in person or even just watching you guys one day do a stream, of something.
Yeah.
It's definitely an awesome feeling to get, like, from a band where you're like, oh my God, I really want to see them live. So I really do hope you guys, continue on. I really hope that the EP is as good as the Music for Exploring, because or I hope it's better, honestly. And I don't know how that's going to happen.
Me too.
Yeah, right. That's like the goal. I don't know how it's going to happen, because you guys set the bar so high for yourself with Music for Exploring, and to hear what comes next is going to be a journey. And
that's my constant fear, is like that. I was like, well, that's it. We did the best we could. One and done, baby.
I was thinking this morning. I was thinking this morning on my way here. I was like, oh, I don't think I can. I don't have any ideas for anything.
Yeah.
I just get so worried. But that's really nice of you to say, Justin. That's really kind of you, man.
Yeah, no,
it's motivating to hear.
And I honestly think the next EP is going to be amazing. There's no doubt in my mind that it's going to be mind blowing. You guys definitely expand minds when it comes to music. So as long as people take a listen to your first album, take a listen to the remix too. I honestly highly recommend the remix album as well.
And that remix is like 10 different artists. We just sent them the stems to everything.
Yeah.
And they were just like, go wild, do whatever.
Yeah, that was so fun to get those tracks back, like trickled
awesome.
in. It was like the amount of care that people took with our music, and then taking it in a completely different direction, and then like really investing themselves in it. It was just such a, it was like a present. It was so cool to get. It was, I cried at one of them in my car, like a grown adult. The a cappella version of Crickets. I was like, this is wild that
Amazing.
someone took time out of their day to do this. It was like, why would anyone take so much time to do this? It was just so nice.
I think, I keep praising six or seven. I really do love that song, but the one that got me was the beginning of the album. The beginning of the album, is what really got me, and I think that's what really sticks with me. I want to say is First Steps is probably everybody's. You couldn't have picked a better intro to the album, is what I should say. So,
oh, thanks, man. That's nice.
But we are unfortunately running out on time. I just want to say thank you so much, you guys, for coming in. And I mean, we talked about a lot here. You know, we talked about what you guys are going to be doing, how you wrote, and I just, for me as a podcaster, I want to do something different. It's not about me, you know. I want it to be about everybody else, and all I am is a platform, and basically I want to stay that way. And I am so grateful that you guys came on, and I'm so grateful for the first video call, and it went amazing, no hiccups.
Yeah,
thank goodness.
Yeah, thanks for the great hangs and kind of steering the conversation. And I think that people hearing from musicians is like making there less that like there's some kind of curtain or like some kind of club you have to join, but you can realize that like, oh, they're just people like messing around and like exploring, and there's no like tricks, there's no secrets. Just
there's
hanging out.
There's a lot of genuosity. If you think about
genuosity.
There it is. You know what? You guys need to make a shirt with that word on it. You guys need to make a shirt with that word on it.
It's actually trademarked, and it will be the name of my next album. So.
Oh, okay. Well, then there it is.
I don't know. That just popped in my head now, but I might steal that actually.
Right. So, all right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I wish you all the best and continue making beautiful work.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having us, man.
No problem. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
I can't